Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from the beautiful metaverse, and more specifically from beautiful Danville, Illinois, homeland of the Corellian tradition. And this is Midday with Reverend Don. Welcome. And as you know, if you follow Midday with Reverend Don, you can type your questions or comments onto whatever platform you're watching on. And on most of those platforms, your comments will show up here in my chat room and we can talk directly. Unfortunately, it's not every single platform, but it's most of them. At sometime in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be changing up some of the platforms that I use, though you should still be able to access the program from anywhere you're seeing it now, I think. But I am looking to make a somewhat more practical arrangement for how I put it out. I hope you're having a lovely day. Yesterday, my guest was Chris Copeland, and we ended up talking about the royal family of the Netherlands and the royal family of Norway and the princess married to the crazy shaman and other interesting things that were totally not on my plan for yesterday's conversation. Hello to Renee in the chat room. It's good to see you, Renee. Um, Today, I was going to revisit the subject of geometric magic and um, maybe take a little break from politics. We'll see. We'll see if that lasts for the whole half hour. But I was going to talk a little bit about metaphysics and why shape has significance and what those significances are. And there is a belief that each shape has its own qualities and its own effects in however you're using it. So, for example, if you're making an energetic construct, the shape in which you make that construct is going to affect the quality of the energy. If you're making a magical artifact, a tool to use, the shapes that you involve in that can influence the way that it will interact with energy, the way that you can use it. Certain things, by their natural shape, are better um, connected to certain processes than others. And we see this, well, for example, in the use of the wand in magic. The wand, pardon my nose, is intended primarily to focus energy, to focus a stream of energy, a beam of energy, if you would. And it is basically built in that same structure. Its geometric form, which is that of a straight line for the most part. Not every wand quite fits into that category, but usually a straight line is intended for that purpose, to send forth energy in a particular direction. If the wand is not straight, if it is curvy, for example, and you will see this, what this actually does is it revs up the energy. It introduces aspects of the form of the circle into that straight line and builds a hybrid of their qualities. The circle enhances energy, it builds energy, it, um, it, it takes the energy and makes it greater. And so when you combine the straight line and that wavy circular quality, you're revving up the energy that you're sending forward. This is something to consider when you're looking, for example, at a wand. Um, the way that it's built is going to influence how it's going to behave with you. Now, to what extent that's going to affect what you're actually doing with it depends on what you're doing with it. Um, but for example, in my collection of staves, I have a number of staves that are perfectly straight, and a couple that are very wavy. The one that I consider probably my most important staff is um, basically wavy. It is one of those branches that was grown wrapped in a grapevine, and so it produces this very back and forth quality, which heightens the energy that is projected through it. And hello to Reverend Michael in the chat room. And this has been further augmented in the way that it's been enhanced with crystals spiraling around that pattern, as well as the crystal on the end to help to focus that energy. When you put together a piece of magical equipment, all of these different elements can be focused toward the end that you wish to use it for. I also have sitting here in my office my second most precious staff, which was a gift from Katrina and others at the World of Witches Museum some years ago. And hello to Wendy in the chat room. And it is much more of a straight wand until you come to the end, in which case it's almost like a question mark. It's not exactly, but it curves at that end to, again, rev up the energy that's coming through it. So let us take a moment to look at different shapes and what you do with them. And obviously, as I've already talked about, the simplest shape is a straight line. And what it does is it projects energy in the direction or directions of that line, depending on how you're creating it and what you're doing with it. And when I call the circle, and people who have been taught to call the circle the way I call the circle, when we do that, when we call in the quarters, we create energetic batteries in those quarters in the form of a pillar of light, whose purpose is to pull in energy and to transmit it throughout the circle. And these pillars are in, hello to Jade Rising in the chat room, they are a straight line, but also a circle in terms of how they're formed. The circle is the next shape that I would talk about. And again, it amplifies and projects energy. Energy you put into a circle will grow and multiply. And when we make those pillars of light, that's what they're there to do. They're to take in the energy, they are to amplify that energy, and they're to hold that energy steady through the straight line. And to keep it contained and in motion at the same time that it's radiating outward between the start and the finish of that column, which is why the column does not go on forever. It goes from one point to another. When we use a wand to project energy, we're sending energy through it with a straight line usually. And of course, the point is to send that energy to a particular purpose. Once it gets there, it will take another form, usually something like a circle. Another prominent shape that we use is the square. What do you do with a square? And in fact, you don't see it quite so often in a lot of contemporary metaphysics. You do see it a lot more in historical metaphysics. What do you do with a square? You build stability with a square. If you want to build an energetic construct of whatever kind, which is intended to last for a long period, then a square is a better shape to use. And you use that shape of the square to create a long-lasting influence. What that influence is will depend on how you've focused that energy, how you've charged that energy. But the square will keep it steady longer. A spiral is another form that we can use. And in the Fellowship of Isis, they tend to prefer the spiral over the circle for most purposes. And hello to Binayak in the chat room. It's good to see you. The spiral is like a circle, but even more about amplifying and sending out energy. It is constantly moving forward, and a spiral, of course, is connected to our next shape, which is a cone. And the cone is also connected to the triangle or the tetrahedron. And both the cone and the tetrahedron, which is basically a triangle with straight sides, 3 sides and a bottom, is all about transforming energy, transmuting energy, taking energy from one state to another. And this is what you would use a triangle for. Also, what you use a cone for. You may have heard the term cone of power. The idea of the cone of power is that you put the energy into it and build it up and send it out. And the shape of the cone helps to build that energy toward its eventual purpose. Using a triangle, a tetrahedron works in the same way. A pyramid, which is the same thing, except with 4 sides and a bottom, also fulfills this same purpose, except it involves the energy of the square, which makes it move a little slower but last a little longer. So if you're looking to create a long-term change, a pyramid is a very good shape to use, because it will take that energy and it will move it upwards and outwards and from one state to another, but slowly, and with an intention of making it last. And we've all heard of pyramid power, which used to be a very popular concept, but you still hear it, and I believe in it to a certain extent, because I'm a great believer in geometric magic. And all of these different forms have uses that are important. These are some of the primary forms that I would refer to. And let me see what I have immediately available. Surely I've got, well, here we have a labradorite ring. And what shape would you say this is? And it is not a circle, it's elongated. It's not an oval because it's equal at both ends. But it still would fulfill the purposes of a circle, but being elongated, it adds a little bit more permanence to that energy. One of the things that I have found over the years in casting circles, and hello to Spac Fan in the chat room, is that you often find yourself in places where a circular form does not remotely correspond to the physical room that you are in, or the physical space you're in. Now, of course, generally speaking, that just means that the astral aspect of that circle does not conform to the physical reality of the location, but sometimes you may want to change the form that you're using according to your location. It depends what you're doing. Using a square, although you don't encounter it an awful lot in modern metaphysics, can be a very useful thing to do when you're trying to create something long-term. For example, a long-term healing. If you're doing a healing for a place, for example, you want that healing to not be momentary, but to be permanent. Using a square to ground it into being can be very helpful. And you don't have to use just one shape at once. If you've ever read my Crystal Web User's Manual, we talk extensively about geometric magic in there and how to use it in ritual, particularly in ritual dance. And historically, I've been something of a fan of ritual dance, although as my motor skills have degenerated over the years, it's not something you're likely to see me doing much of anymore. But the concept, I think, is still very good. And if you remember the 40th anniversary of Lady Crystal and I as First Priesthood, you'll know, and you can go back and watch in the archives of Corellian TV, because we have archives, that we celebrated with a large geometric magic dance to bless and maintain that blessing on the tradition. And that dance involved pretty much all of the different shapes that I'm talking about. Some people took a circle, some people took a square, some people took a triangle. And this is one of the ways that you can combine all of these things. And if you look back, and Binayak refers to the flower of life, which is a very important geometric magical symbol. There are so many different things that you can do. Now, once you know these qualities, you can look for them in places you may not previously have seen them, in metaphysical symbols, um, in daily life. When, um, well, let's say we look at a cup. What shape is the cup? Well, it actually has more than one shape, but generally speaking, it's a circle which is also a cylinder. So, like those columns of light we raise when we create a circle, a magic circle. What is the point of that? Again, to generate and disseminate energy within its particular era, but what within its particular area. But what is the point of a cup? To contain sustenance, which is the same thing that we're doing with the energy. Energetic sustenance, coffee. Also, energetic sustenance of a different kind. Um, but a lot of this you will find applies in perfectly mundane objects if you look at them from a metaphysical point of view. And you may find that um, it will give you some understandings you had not previously thought of. And what is the point of doing something like that? Well, one, it can help you to have greater understandings, but it also goes back to that whole idea of as above, so below. Um, the idea that everything in the created world reflects the creative power. And when we look at, well, for example, I'm sitting here at a desk talking into my computer. What is the shape of a desk? It's a rectangle, which is an elongated square. What is the purpose of a desk? To hold things, um, which is relatively what I've been saying about the purpose of a square. The fact that it's elongated um, adds a longer period to the idea, but a desk is intended to last for a long time. It's intended to provide stability. It's providing stability to my computer. And these ideas can be applied to very mundane things as well as very subtle things. This is like the process of isopsiphos. And if you remember my talks about numerology, you'll remember isopsiphos. If you've forgotten it, let me describe it for you. Isopsiphos is a Greek form of numerology where you work out the total numerological meaning of a word, which will be depending on the size of the word, probably in three figures. You do not divide it down as you do in more standard numerology. You take it at its full form, and then you compare it to other words that have that same numerology, and you see what they have to do with each other. And the thing is, they generally do. And you'll find that they provide further information on each other's meanings, even though they may at first be very different. This is also something you find when you start looking at the shape of things from a point of view of geometric magic. And this again comes back to as above, so below, and is very much a part of understanding the universe in a magical way. In a magical way of thinking, everything is connected. And ultimately, everything can be a way of learning about everything else. This is the basis of divination. The idea that drawing a tarot card is going to tell you something about a situation is based on this idea of as above, so below, that everything reflects the same universal energy throughout, and knowledge about everything can be accessed through anything. And when you look at things in that way, um, one of the things, and hello to Unique One in the chat room, one of the things that I find, at least, is that the idea that the carrots must not touch the peas ceases to have any meaning, because the carrots and the peas both reflect the same internal nature. So, of course, they can touch. What do I mean by that? I've spoken before about my attitude toward pure anything. I'm not a fan of it. I'm a great believer in the wide path and the most knowledge that you can gather. Um, I think it's much better to have a wide knowledge of many things than a deep knowledge of only one. Um, because to have the deep knowledge of only one, who knows what else you don't know? But when you study many things, I think you come out with a lot better position to understand all of them. So there are a lot of forces in the metaphysical world that will not agree with that point of view, but it's my point of view. And because of that, if you read my works, you'll find they draw on a lot of sources. And in the end, tend to come down to um, using different ways of examining the same issues through different lenses. And Midday says, flip coins. Well, yes, that flipping a coin is an excellent form of divination. And why on earth would it work except for this? In my new book that should be out soon, Rev Don's book of stones, metals, and crystals, one of the things I talk about at one point is practices regarding coins. The idea, for example, that if you find a penny and pick it up all the day, you'll have good luck. I follow that, and I've found that it has been very effective for me. If you find a dime, it indicates the influence of your ancestors around you at that time particularly. And I've tended to find that also has significance for me. Um, but why would it have significance? How could just randomly finding a dime mean anything unless it's all connected? And if it's all connected, then making artificial divisions between it doesn't make any sense. Um, I think if we look at history, one of the things we'll see is that cultures that have included many different influences are usually far more vital and move forward much more quickly than cultures that have only a single point of view, which tend to become static. And um, while they may last for a while, they don't develop particularly. They stay the same. But when we bring different things together, we we move forward faster. Swagfan says, I prefer to use the shake of the 8 ball instead of flipping the coins. And, I can think of times I've done that too. The 8 ball was a very cool thing in its day. And my attitude on divination is that divination is a language that spirit uses to communicate with us. And as long as we believe in the divination that we're doing, spirit will use it. So if you believe in your 8 ball, I think it will be effective for you. Fortune cookies. Um, I tend to pay attention to fortune cookies, and I've tended to find that for me, they tend to be pretty accurate. I know other people for whom that's not true, but they also don't believe in them. Um, and um, this is one of the things about magic, which is that what you don't believe will not work for you. It's one of the reasons why shadow work is so important. We've spoken extensively about shadow work on this program. Um, but so often we stop ourselves um, from the things that we think we want because inside we have crossed wires. We don't think we can have it. We don't believe we could have that thing that we want. Therefore, we can't have it because we won't let it in. And I'm a great believer in the idea that we do stop things that we think we want because we haven't dealt with the fact that we either really don't want them or don't believe we could have them. Now, Fan asks, what does it mean to find a penny on the ground? I've always taken that as a sign of luck and that something good is soon to happen. For example, if you're going to a meeting and on the way you find a penny on the ground, I would take that to mean that the meeting is going to go well. If you're just going about your business, there's nothing special going on, you find the penny, well, it's going to be a good day. I would take it as a sign of blessing and a sign that whatever you're doing is going to be going pretty much as you would like it. And then, as I say, if you find a dime on the ground, that means your ancestors are actively around you. It may mean that you're in need of protection but have it. It may mean that they want to talk to you if you're someone who regularly talks to your ancestors. Or it may just be reassurance that they're always with you. But a dime is more particularly a message from the ancestors. And at this point, I see we're nearing the end of our half hour, and I want to take a moment for a word from our sponsors. And
to unlock the secrets of the universe, join me, Rev Don Lewis, for my metaphysical and magic auctions at Gaia Thrift at whatnot.com. Discover fascinating artifacts, mystical crystals, and rare and unusual books that could change your life. Don't miss this chance to bring a little magic into your world. Rev Don's Metaphysical and Magic Auctions, where the extraordinary can become yours.
And thank you to our sponsors, Reverend Don's Metaphysical and Magic Auctions, and Equinox Learning Hub. And why do we hear from our sponsors every day? Because we love our sponsors. And you know, I love this time with you. I love talking with you. I love the fact that we have this chat room where we can talk directly. And I hope that you enjoy the program as well. Tomorrow, I will be broadcasting from Gaia Thrift, and I think we have something rather cute to share with you. So hopefully you will join us tomorrow. And I would have to say it's been a week of eclectic programming, but that is really kind of what I go for. So I guess that's appropriate. I hope that you have a wonderful day. And with that, let us close with our prayer, as we always do. Divine Mother Goddess, Divine Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you for all that you do for us in our lives, and we rejoice in this walk we walk together, and we ask you to help us to always be heedful of the messages of Spirit, and to allow the messages of Spirit to reach our conscious mind. Help us to be prepared for all the things we face in life, and help us always to deal effectively with those things we face. Beloved Mother Goddess, beloved Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you with great love. Knowing you're always with us, we thank you for your presence. May you be blessed now and always. May you be